Alright, welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, Day 113. What's up, Plex64? How's it going? So, for the standard intro, there's no updates on the red eviction situation. And to pick up where we left off, we're continuing with the goal of getting towards the next release of the terminal block mining simulation game. Today, I worked on a diagram for the next video, long-form video. And that's all I did today. And then, so tonight we're going to be continuing work on refactoring the test cases in anticipation of supporting multi-column character merging. And I'm hoping that this will be the last stream of working on this before I can actually move on to actually fixing and testing the implementation. And I guess the screen update debugging feature, I'll just cut that off for now. The circular buffer backing, I probably will do that. And then this region iteration speed up, that's probably easy. I don't know, maybe I'll push that off to the future because of how long this is taking. So the task to work on tonight is to add another data structure to that class I was working on that will populate it with some booleans, and will have a true if the character at that location in that layer is occluded. Alright, game works. Tests are working. Chain calls are a nightmare to read. Yeah, I also have, I use a lot of indentation, and it's a small screen. And I guess I have 4-column tabs. Actually, is that multiple tabs? No. Yeah, these are really deep tabs. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I guess that's 8 characters. I didn't even realize that. I guess that contributes to the insane indentation. Yeah. That's too much. But I'll probably just not fix it. What version of Java? I'm using Java 21, I think now. Yeah, 21. If coordinates are long, y iterate as ints, and then typecast. I guess it's a good question. When an iterate is long, the reason is if I iterate as long, because I'm using these x and y as array indices in a couple of places. I would prefer to actually standardize on longs, but where is it here? I guess actually here I'm not. Yeah, so coordinate uses long. Yeah, for other things, so like when I'm indexing into the arrays, the array index, the reference is int. So it is kind of it's an inconsistency I have to live with. If I used to just standardize on longs, but then I found that I was always trying to standardize on long, but then I would just have to dereference the array indices anyway. Like this one here, I would. It's kind of annoying, I think, because I think technically a long, I mean, I haven't benchmarked it, but I'm pretty sure a long would actually be faster. And I think that's one of the reasons why, another reason why I settled on long for the actual, like, this is a pretty core data structure. An int is about half of a long. Or like a long type is the standard, like, I think registers are what, 64-bit or so. No, so I think most of your operations are 64-bit anyway, and I guess I don't know about it all depends on the microcode and everything, but some people would assume that like it operating on a byte would be faster than operating on a long, but because if you're the fastest operations are going to be based on machine word size rather than the smallest byte type, because if you're iterating on, like, if you make your booleans 1 bit, then you still have to mask it. The CPU still has to mask it off of a word, which is like multiple operations, whereas if you use 64 bits just for one boolean, it could potentially still be faster, because then the CPU is writing a bunch of zeros, but it doesn't have to mask it off as like another couple assembly instructions. I assume modern CPUs though have probably like some faster, intelligent things, but I don't know. You have to ask an optimizing compiler expert. If you store the array value of each index, you'll get much higher performance than doing nested loop array indices each time. So each step you remove a statement. Yeah, for now, so technically this is like the second implementation of what I'm trying to do. This is actually just for a test case. So I don't really care too much about making it fast. The main goal for this code is just to make it like correct and understandable. Because the actual implementation that I want is what I'm testing with this code. You actually test. I kind of have to with this thing. It's like a fundamental feature for it. The goal of it is to be able to merge together layers of the screen and then write them and have like tracking of like changed flags. So in order to get good performance, I have to be able to like write and do a lot of updates, complicated updates to the screen. But I need to be smart enough to only write the differences, because if I'm lazy on that, it just makes the performance like intolerably slow. And with all the fact I have extra flags for like checking if a certain column if a certain character is active or not, or depending on what layer it is. And I also wanted a feature for like inputting stuff into to be able to write, to be able to maintain like a screen layer and then write the screen layer in at an arbitrary offset, and just have a bunch of features like that. And I did just kind of write it, but it was extremely bug ridden. What's up, bro? What are you building? I'm building a terminal-based video game where you simulate the process of mining blocks of iron ore. Don't know what you're doing, Magic Man, but I need to work on my math. High on caffeine. Exams are brutal. You have to work on your math for exams, but you're here on the internet. You're procrastinating. You're watching other people work while you could be working. Pizza break. Excellent. You also need to be studying. Taking discrete math. Nice. That's interesting. So you're both studying math right now. Maybe you guys can help each other. You guys can quiz each other in the chat. Are you both taking the same math course? Apparently is a member for 16 months. Wow. Hello, and how are you? not too bad. I feel like I'm getting closer to the end of my character layer merging test refactoring saga. How are you doing? Working on the truck. Yeah, working on vehicles is a task that never ends, it seems. But I guess in the future it's going to become impossible to work on your vehicle. So everything's going to be locked down. I installed an ESP32 wireless Arduino type thing under the radio. Sends all sorts of vehicle states and to control a few things with relays. Wow, that's a highly advanced vehicle you've got now. I messed around with some of those ESP ESP 8266, I think. I bought a bunch of those. But that was kind of back when, I don't know, relations with China were a bit better. And since then, like the software has always been like super sketchy. So it seems like the kind of thing that would be like deliberately created as a mass market thing and then filled with all sorts of vulnerabilities. Now I can turn on an LED light bar and set off the horn. Rolly. Wow, that might even be too powerful. Is it like sending CAN bus messages, or should be careful about that? literally just a relay that connects the wires like I'm holding the horn manually. Okay. Yeah, you have to be careful with those CAN bus systems. I am aware of some situations where it's like you would think those CAN bus systems are super hardened against all kinds of like problems and bad messages and stuff like that. But I think that the software that controls that stuff is pretty haphazard. And I've known some situations where like it's not difficult to inadvertently stall a vehicle through software means. Rain Shroon. Good luck with world domination. Thanks. If you send the wrong command, it can set other computerized module into an invalid, unexpected state. Yeah, I think those things are not really, there's nobody like fuzz testing that stuff. And it's pretty obscure, so like it's, JSON, web JSON libraries get lots of code coverage, or test coverage, but there's not many people brave enough to like figure out how to send CAN messages. What did I stumble upon? You've stumbled upon writing some test cases for a terminal-based block mining game where you mine blocks of iron ore in the terminal. And I'm currently working on some test cases for improving the process of writing to the screen and updating, calculating what differences are need to be sent out to the screen layer. I think Audi had an exploit where you could send an arbitrary CAN bus command to any vehicle as long as you did. Oh yeah, I think I've heard of it. Some stuff like that. Yeah, that's great. You just want to have your car have an API exposed where like you can drive down the highway and then anyone can SSH into it. I mean, people don't really think about the fact that for a big ticket item, the cost of a modem and like the cost of a modem and like a SIM card that can process a few kilobytes a day, the cost of having that and maintaining that is quite low. Which means, and that, of course, for cars, there's a ton of value in like stealing people's driving information for insurance companies. So people don't realize like the fact that their car now is probably like listening to everything that they do and uploading everything to the cloud. And then when you plug your phone in, it's gonna like pull all the data off it and steal it. It can't conform. Wow. Did you test? Drive it with disabled. Interesting. Did they fix this? Or is this like you can still you can shut off arbitrary cars in the highway by like sending a curl command? I mean, that's such a mind-blowing exploit. It's incredible that this is where we are with technology. We're so desensitized from everything being hackable all the time. Some jerk sends a command, locks your steering wheel at whatever angle. Yeah, actually, I saw a video on Twitter of some guy driving down the highway, and he was like rammed into the median. It looked like a crazy person at first, but then the caption said it was his steering wheel locked or something. Game Dev Chad says, "Good evening, Robert. How's it going? Still in the wild? Well, I hope that's not the case. That's seems like the kind of thing some government organization should follow up on and fine them $50 for that." The new Fords have the same, if not worse, exploit. Man, these companies gotta get with the program. Like it's not a good feature to have your car on the internet all the time. I assume it can't be that bad in reality. There must be some fix or investigation or something about it. They have a fix, but they want money to fix it? That's insane. That seems like such a serious vulnerability that the government should force them to fix that. I was informed tonight that we won a ruling on our 14-year software IP trade secret lawsuit. We won on a good amount of claims, and defense won 0. Nice. That's a long fight, a long legal fight. I can send the right commands to remove all keys, then turn off all control modules, except the inverter. 596K damages. Wow, that's a pretty huge suit. Is that like a video game related software project? Plus, we wouldn't be able to turn off the car because it's already off. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't like what I'm hearing. I should fix all that. Software in the new Audis runs off flash card. It's read only. That's where they that's where they charge you. Man, that's awful. They have yeah, like, I guess for security reasons it makes sense for it to be read only, but the fact that this is, I mean, the fact that your car is like on the internet by default now is not cool. Not video game, web service. Online advertising. Well, that's good. That's a nice chunk of change. So my truck has pure metal key. No steering wheel lock. Yep, pretty soon we'll have to go back to the old stuff with no microchips in it. Truck still has microchips, but it's for lean, rich amount, catalytic converter magic. Yeah, the amount of complexity in modern cars now is like on one hand, I'm hopeful that the homebrew, like average person can catch up to like learn this stuff, but I don't know the rate at which ordinary people are learning about this stuff. Like I think ordinary mechanics are just not keeping up. There's not enough. There's just like too much knowledge. Like you need to be an engineer to be able to interface with this stuff. Is it okay? Sorry. It's like actual world domination or game. It's both. I hate newer throttles. People who have never driven older cars don't even notice the severe delay from modern accelerators. I haven't driven a car in a while. Last time I had a car was in high school. Ever since coming up here, it hasn't quite been necessary to have one. I guess during co-ops, I moved every 4 months, so it would, and going between countries, it wouldn't have made sense. Nicola, the Russian spy, 5450. Robert, would you still consider U-Waterloo SE to be good? Got in, but I'm apprehensive about where the field is going. I would say if you're interested in software engineering and you got into the University of Waterloo co-op program, in which I recall it's only in software engineering, it's only co-op. In my opinion, I think you're probably, of all the people in software development right now, you're probably the best positioned out of maybe like anywhere in an industry that is also not doing well. So yeah, I mean it's a negative that the overall industry is terrible now. And I've heard, I check the subreddit, the Waterloo subreddit every now and then, and I hear people saying that the market is bad in an unprecedented way. But on the other hand, the fact that there's like the co-op program at all, I think is way too many universities and colleges just emphasize like teaching courses and stuff, and they don't focus enough on giving people like creating the infrastructure to get people jobs. Like the fact that Waterloo has like a building dedicated to like job interviews and stuff, and they make it easier for recruiters to come. I think most other schools don't have any kind of infrastructure like that. And actually, I saw. I haven't been checking Hacker News much, but I just did see a thread on Hacker News today, like actually just before I came on, that where people are arguing about like immigration and people on H-1B visas and stuff, and then someone commented like, "Oh, things are not good. It's time to like cut off all the people from Waterloo who are going to Silicon Valley." And then someone commented like, I would fight you to keep the Waterloo grads coming here. They're super great and amazing and stuff. And so the fact that argument even happened at all, it's, I think, a positive thing. So yeah, the economy's crap, the industry's crap, but the co-op program is still like if anybody is getting jobs in tech, it's Waterloo grads. So yeah, hopefully that's positive enough for you. Yeah, I guess it just means like if you're super passionate about the field, then Like there are some people that, and I don't know what category you fall into. There's some people who go into the program who say they did it just to like impress their parents, and they don't care about, like, it's not interesting to them at all. And I think those people will struggle. But if you're intrinsically interested in it, then you can entertain yourself by the love of the craft and keep your head down. I guess you said you got in, so that means you just got in. That probably means like, so if it's the program's 4 years and 8 months. 4 years and 8 months from now, the job market is probably going to look different. So if you're graduating in 5 years, like the economy is stupid. We may have, like right now we're saying we have way too many. Got in during school year, attending in less than a month. Okay, so that means you're graduating in quite a while from now. Yeah, I think that's probably ideal to like if people graduating right now are going to have a really hard time, because getting that initial work experience is going to be very difficult. But if you're starting now, like assuming that AI doesn't automate all software jobs or something like that, and assuming we don't go into like a 10-year depression or something, I think a realistic scenario would be the economy becomes crap. Maybe we have a stock market crash this year, and then the economy is absolutely awful for the next, like it's just horrendous for the next 4 years. And there's all these articles about like people not like people are ditching tech. Tech is stupid, and there's all these like media articles. And then one day after you graduate, which will be, I guess, 4 years and 9 months from now, which is a ways away, one day after you graduate, the market will just recover, and then it'll be just like back in 2013 again. And then you'll make a whole bunch of money, and everything will be great. And you'll be getting a job the same time as the people who are graduating tomorrow, because they spent 4 years looking for a job. I don't know, I'm just making up scenarios in my head. It's hard to figure out what'll happen, but nice talking to you folks. And Robert, gotta drop. Have a good night. I expect the media will also over dramatize everything. There'll be all these news broadcasts like big tech was once heralded as a lucrative career path, and students were competing for Google jobs, but now things have changed. This one student is graduated software engineering, and now he's becoming a plumber. Experts say students who took STEM degrees are all throwing their degrees in the garbage and becoming plumbers and roofers. And then in another couple of years, they'll make articles saying like, "Oh, these people were idiots. They couldn't stick with it. They should have stayed in tech." Because now all the roofers are unemployed. Robert, you are now playing through the truck speakers. Excellent. Okay, I think I'm making progress here. It's another very insane function. So we start at the top layer. Can't read that one. That's in Russian. Robert, what are you raising funds for? I've never seen anyone code in gedit before. Wait, it's just terminal in a VM? What makes you think it's in a VM? I've no one to celebrate with tonight, so I'm here to hang out for a bit. Can't do any work. Yeah, I would imagine that's 14 years. That's it's like a significant percent. That must be a significant percentage of your entire professional lifetime. And it's a decent payout. Cheers to your success. I'll drink some tea in your honor. Court stuff is really annoying. Robert looks like he went through 30 years of lawsuits. I went through what's it been now? I guess this one has been over a year. The rent eviction situation. And then that chasing that business that owed me a bunch of money, that was the better part of a year. Just being pulled away from your life every two or so years for a month or two. Yeah, the annoying thing I find about court is court is serious. Like, for example, in a deposition, if you're gonna go do a deposition, you have to know what the rules are. So it's important. So you ought to do some research and make sure you follow the process correctly and send the right forms in, and make sure you understand how the opposition is going to use it and stuff. And that it just takes time to learn those facts. So you end up having to become a legal expert for your own case. So it's almost equivalent to getting a law degree in to getting a law degree in your specific case. Shouldn't work that way, but delays from the court system. Technicalities kept sending both parties back and making even longer delays. Yeah, 14 years. That's incredibly long. Hi, unrelated topic. I was interested into robotics. We're doing little kits. Seems like a cool idea. Nothing serious. Have you tried anything with robotics? Yes, I have. What I would recommend actually is, I think it's probably still cheap, but buying cheap stuff on eBay. So if you're okay with, well, the disadvantage is you have to wait quite a bit for the stuff to arrive. But I learned a lot just by buying little random electronic things like Arduinos, and if you want to buy random capacitors or some a motor, stepper motor or something, buying them on eBay which you might not think is a great, it's the ideal place, but like it's not like used stuff on eBay. It's brand new stuff that comes out of China, and you can, if you're okay with waiting insanely long amounts of time, you can get, like if you want to buy some stepper motors or something, I find if you buy them from the US, they'll be like 3 times the price, but then you got to pay for shipping and taxes and import fees. Whereas when you buy it from China, for some reason they just never charge the import fees. And yeah, and also the base cost is just so much lower. And also you can buy like one of something too. So if you want to buy like a couple random screws, you can do that for a few cents. And that was kind of where I started my building up my like electronics stuff. I would like to actually play with it more, but I don't have time. I have a couple videos. I have a video on my channel called like an introduction to motors for web developers. But other than that, I don't have a lot of videos on electronic stuff. "14 years, human born learns to walk." Yeah, even in middle school. Awarded an injunction which put our opponent out of business instantly. The injunction. So I guess that the injunction was to like prevent them from continuing to. So it sounds like they like stole some of your software or something. Many lawsuits just go to the parties. Please try. Yeah, it's so much resources to produce so little. Rice Cooker 3K says, "Hello there. How's it going? What are you working on right now?" I'm working on some test cases for a terminal-based video game. Unbelievable story that would fill a chat for an hour. Short, our exclusive marketer had special access, paid a web company to duplicate our software. Web company tried to do SQL injection to, steal the data. Yeah, I guess that's catching them pretty red-handed. if they were trying to criminally steal the data. Wow, I guess if you had all that information to present in court, it's not surprising that you won. But it's a tragedy it took 14 years to figure out the verdict. We sued them at the injunction, but they tried to countersue. Yeah, it's too bad. Like, it's this whole thing. There's so much effort goes into like trying to steal stuff. If they put all that effort into building something instead of suing for years, and they would have come out ahead. Love your What Should I Do With My Life? Greetings from Toronto. How's it going? Glad it was useful to you. A bunch of people asked me for life advice, so I figured it probably makes sense to do that video. Claimed all kinds of things, like our software and data had problems. That doesn't give them justification to steal it. Claim breach of contract. Should make a blog post or something. Send it into Hacker News. Watch that video. Wondered, man, how do I think more clearly like that? Seems simple on the surface. yeah, I guess I don't know. It's some of the aspects are, I think, pretty simple, but I guess people appreciate having like an algorithm spelled out. There's a lot of like kind of useless guidance counselor advice out there, like just believe in yourself and whatever. Yeah, but if you made a blog post or something, if you're into the, or like that would probably do well on LinkedIn. I'm not really active on LinkedIn, but then again, you might not want to broadcast everything, depending on. Might be counterproductive if for that kind of a win. Probably doesn't. Any benefit you'd get from a blog post is probably negligible. Attempting an SQL injection is not a crime. I would assume it is, if you can demonstrate that it was an intent. I'm having a kid, I'll name him Drop Table People. Why not Bobby Drop Tables? SQL injection. So did I guess for the SQL injection, if that was through your public web interface, how did you identify that it was them? Do you have to like get IP address records and stuff? Did you have to go through like a legal process to get stuff from the ISP and like confirm it? Use their own IPs, matching forward and reverse DNS for their. Oh, okay. Reverse DNS for the company. Okay, that's a pretty. That's incredible. They're sophisticated enough to like set up reverse DNS, but they're not sophisticated enough to just write their own software and not steal things. web company was also named in the lawsuit. It was immediately put out of business. The injunction. Guy filed bankruptcy finally, ruling today, and they conspired, so they are both liable for everything. Guy's employee did it without him knowing. Yeah, I mean, you should write a. I guess I'm not sure if you're into having a media presence, but it sounds like it would make for an interesting blog post. Thank you very much. I'm glad the scale of justice ruled in your favor. So the outcome was it was a judgment in your favor. But like, were you able to collect? So like, there were damages, financial damages to you, but like, did all the, because if you get a judgment, you have to collect on that judgment. But if they just went into business, then like sometimes you can you can be awarded $1 billion in damages, but if there's nothing there to collect, then you're out of it. So did you recoup some of the financials? Used to be Volta, but we put them into business. So we may not be able to collect. Yeah, I guess, I mean, if the injunction lasted for 14 years, I would imagine if you were not able to operate the business for 14 years, that would put you under. Attorneys will dig up things until we find out where he's got things stashed. What field of software engineering would you say you're specialized in? Me. I don't know. It's actually kind of hard to say. When I was in school and like I kind of aspired to go into more like C++, kernel dev type stuff. But then almost everything I got paid to do was in high-level web. And then I tried to pitch several focuses on from the consulting work I did when I was trying to bootstrap my business. But the problem was pretty much every person that wanted some software development worked on it was like wanted like a mix, a range of stuff. They would like want some high-level web stuff and some embedded stuff and SQL, and ended up being more like objective based rather than like specific language and technology based. So I just kind of had to kind of adjust to whatever. Like I would come in, the company would say they wanted like one thing optimized, but actually they needed like 5 different things. Yeah, I guess since then. And then in recent years, I've been just doing more and more of the social media stuff. So at this point, the specialization, I've written a fairly substantial subset of a fairly substantial like hobby compiler that can parse a substantial subset of C89. I've done a lot of I taught some embedded systems courses, and I took my actually a kind of bare bones microkernel that I wrote and got it to run on an embedded board, and that I used for teaching that course a couple times. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to say what my specialization is. Because at times I've had to do just a bunch of different stuff. It's probably better to enumerate what I'm not good at. So anything Windows. I haven't done much like 3D graphics stuff. Just never something I've focused on. Hi, any recommendations for projects to add to the portfolio to land internships? Targeting systems-related co-ops, not just embedded. Honestly, I would. It's very easy to waste a lot of time on projects. If I were you, I'd maybe like enumerate some of the companies that you think you'd want to work at, and then make it your task to like actually reach out to them and ask some of them for like ideas about projects. Ideally, if you could like talk to some managers or something, maybe even like reach out to some manager, like think about some places you want to work, and then figure out how to send a message that won't get ignored about like you want to start developing some projects, and that way you're at least getting one example of something that might actually be relevant, because it's, if you're going to do a project, spend a few weeks on it or something, and then if no one cares, you're just wasting those few weeks. And even if you do get suggestions, sometimes people suggest stuff, be like, oh yeah, go ahead and build this, and they don't care about wasting your time. I learned some when I started it with the consulting thing. There was a couple of companies I talked to about like they wanted me to do some web stuff for Angular, so I was like, okay, I'll take this week and I'll learn AngularJS. Yeah, that was AngularJS version 1 at that time, and then that was quickly like deprecated, and then Angular 2 was nothing like Angular 1. So then everything I learned about it was a total waste of time, and I never ended up programming any Angular projects at all. So that may be the outcome of your portfolio project work. And it's best if you can avoid wasting that time. Should I refactor a critical table tied to valuable revenue numbers, despite the fact that my employer does not deserve it? I can raise revenue in a big way, but I hate my job. You can raise refactoring a critical table. I don't know. It sounds like you're asking like a couple questions. One is about like the safety of refactoring a critical code path or data structure, and like the safety of that. And the other is like, does your employer deserve it? I don't know. I mean, if you're doing hard work, you should get the least you could get is a good like performance evaluation or something. But if your employer does not appreciate you, then that's a critical issue with your workplace. Your workplace, they need to appreciate you and compensate you well, and otherwise, what's the point? You may find building rasterizing interesting if you ever have time. Good intersection of hardware level stuff you've done in the past. Good intro to computer graphics. Yeah, it sounds interesting. The thing is, I get through these live streams, I get so many recommendations to learn things in languages and stuff. I don't have time to look into them all. Wouldn't go extra mile for those who don't appreciate it. It's the shortest path to a burnout. Yeah, I guess it depends a lot. Like if this person is always like, you said it's a critical table, and there's also the question of like, what if there's a regression or an issue in the refactoring process, and then they chew you out for it, even though it's like, super useful towards a good cause. Time to take inspiration from your plumber calls. Would you think there's some that will prepare for those roles? Would you think there's some that will prepare for those roles? I don't understand the end of that question. I think there's some employers that will prepare for the roles. I know we can refactor it. Sorry for the random question. Just appreciate your insight. Yeah, I mean, the whole point of work, if you're working under someone else, you're working, the whole idea is you go in, you sacrifice your time, you work hard, and then the company appreciates, they demonstrate their appreciation for you by giving you money or giving you a pat on the head and be like, wow, thanks so much. We really appreciate the hard work and sacrifice that you do. And if they don't do that, and assuming, I guess, to take the employer side, assuming that you actually are, good enough to refactor it and stuff like that, but would not have enough information to make that determination here. But assuming you're doing good work, they should compensate you well for it. And if they're not doing that, then I think you're right to question the value of putting in that extra effort. But having said that, given the way the industry is, it doesn't surprise me. Like if you're a software developer and you're working somewhere and you don't feel appreciated, the standard advice would be like, just quit and go somewhere else. It does appreciate you, but it's very likely you'll quit and go somewhere else, and they also won't appreciate you. And you'll quit that place and you go to another place that also is a different kind of terrible, and now you're busy hopping between jobs. And so there's a whole thing to consider about, like, office politics and there's probably a lot of people that just build a degree of pessimism about the industry, and they're just like, I don't care anymore. We'll just come in and do the bare minimum. I think there's a lot of people in that mode. Would you think there's some projects that will prepare for these rules? For these rules, you said systems-related co-ops. Systems. That could mean a lot of things. So ideas for portfolio projects related to, like, software engineering systems, but not embedded. You mean like middleware, distributed systems and stuff, and like DevOps type things, or like Docker containers and managing clusters, and because it all depends on what kind of internships you're targeting. quite broad, but yes. Systems, networking, kernels. Emulators might be a project. It depends in what respect. I don't know, I like working with emulators or trying to build them, or I would say if you're gonna like something that would be relevant to the intersection of a lot of that stuff would be that would be very transferable. Would be just like learn a lot about shell scripting. So if you go over my core utils series, like if you're just looking for, if you have non-specific objectives, you could do some projects with writing some really cool bash scripts that do something interesting, and go through all the core utils videos I have. Because if you just learn about like how to redirect stuff, streams, and all the kinds of weird intricacies of the terminal and job control and stuff, that transfers very well to like if you're launching a distributed system. There's all kinds of quirks about how to set it up, things to do with networking. There's a bunch of networking commands. Actually, I wish I had more time to do my series. I really need more networking commands on my favorite command series. I'm in business intelligence. If I implement the refactor, I'd be about 3 million in recognized revenue. Holding back because it's what you said. Undercompensated. I see none of it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a savvy businessman, maybe you can come up with a plan to approach them and say like, hey, I know how to do this thing, and like try to get them to convince them to see the value in having you do this work. But knowing how companies operate, they might just like tell you to take a hike, or say you should do it anyway, or like I guess if you want to approach that, then you'd have to like I guess the question would be like, let's say you do this refactor and then revenue goes up. Was that because of what you did, or is it just the company's revenue goes up and down, stuff like that? Is there a way, like if you make this change, is there a way that you can predict and quantify beforehand what the benefit will be? Because if you can say, like if you can calculate it beforehand, like say like if it's based on so many dollars per row or something like that, you could say like, I can tell you with 100% confidence that the daily decrease in the amount on our AWS bill will quantifiably go down by 2.9873 million if I make this change, or like maybe not pegged to it might be based on resource consumption, so like the daily consumption of bandwidth or whatever will go down by this amount, and if you can predict it specifically, and you can show them a graph on their usage and be like, okay, every single month this is where the value is at, and then you can like draw the graph, the prediction graph with a pen, and say like, I can make it do this, and then you could and then you could say like, and if I do that, you will make $3 million. But it's really hard, and I'm gonna have to work late nights and stuff like that, but I'm willing to do this for like, I don't know, a 10% cut of the benefit for 1 month. Give me yeah, I guess if it's 3 mil, or well, you could do what would that be, like 10% of that, 10% of the savings for 1 month, that'd be $30,000. Then you can, or like whatever, just, or you can say like 1 month worth of the savings or something, 300,000. What make, you just make out the plan. But if you can spell it out, because I think for management, if some low-level engineer comes to like upper management and proposes something, it says like, I can optimize the whole system, give me a bunch of money. They'll be like, is this guy just crazy or something? Like, I don't know what he says he's going to write some code and the numbers go up and down. Did they do anything or not? But if you can quantify it, if you can predict it beforehand, and this may or may not be possible, depending on what your system is, and you have to probably give me confidential details, which I don't care about. But yeah, if you can make it clear and precisely predict like the graph and say like, when I deploy the change, it's gonna drop like this, and then you make the deployment, and and then they get the bill for the next month, and it's gone down by exactly the amount that you said it would, and then the bill goes down by exactly the amount that you said it would, and they're like, wow, this guy actually did it. He really did. And it's like clear and convincing. And it'd be nice if you could just like get them to sign something. I think you probably don't want to like have something super crazy written up by a lawyer, but if you could just like write it on a napkin and then get them to be like, if you like this proposal, put a check mark on it, and then like, okay, you get a check mark, and then you can come back later and be like, well, you put this check mark on here, you said you were going to give me this thing. And if you can quantify it in the right way so they can't weasel out of it afterward. Stop point before and after analysis. It's a good idea. Yeah, ideally if it's simple and like easily quantifiable, something that's like ideally even based on their bill, because the upper management probably doesn't understand anything about the system, but they do understand the bills that they get. Try to look into building home lab. You might learn a lot. Yeah, that's another idea as well. Use some build a home lab out of some old garbage laptops. I'm the low-level crazy guy. Yep. And depending on how crazy you are and how unkempt and how much of a neck beard you have, that may or may not, that may or may not color how seriously upper management takes you on it. But if you can learn to talk their language, which is just like the numbers on the invoice, because if you start telling upper management about like, database table structure and stuff like that, they probably aren't going to care. That's one thought. I mean, it's possible you even may spell all this out and they may still not take you seriously. Like some companies are just run by terrible management. You can hand something to them on a silver platter and be like, hey, would you like me to save you millions of dollars? And they're like, nope. And then they just go out of business. Heading out. Have a great night. Have a great night to you as well. Thanks for the super chat. Oh, that's wrong. All right, let's see if that works. Doesn't it feel weird that random strangers know about your life and ask questions about it? Yeah, I guess it is kind of weird. But in a way, I think that's kind of part of the business model of doing something like YouTube. Like a lot of people, most people are just super embarrassed and shy about everything. And if you like one way that competitive advantage is if you just kind of don't really care, because some people are. That's one thing I realized that it took me a long time to realize that most people are just like want to be very private about everything to a degree that I don't quite comprehend. I guess my hope is by the time I get like really annoying people, maybe hopefully I'd have enough like traffic and revenue that maybe I could just live in like a castle somewhere and I could have security cameras set up 24/7. Metrics Navigator sends $2. Thank you very much. Glad the insight was useful. Hopefully you can leverage that to get some ROI on your $2. Maybe you can get a piece of that $3 million. Oh, that's wrong. Right, I think that does what I want. Now, I think there's still some fixes I need to add to the actual tests, but maybe we can begin testing the multi-column character placement. Should I learn to code in CLI as well? I'm just checking to see if there was someone else who asked about projects. Okay, I think you're a different chatter. If you want to, what type of stuff do you program? Do you program mostly web stuff, or Java, or like embedded system stuff? I think there's certain, like for what I'm doing, I'm writing Java in Vim, which is actually pretty, most people don't use Vim for Java, they use an IDE. I write Rails. It's a good question. I actually don't know what most people write Rails in. I think terminal-based development is pretty reasonable for Rails. For some things, for certain types of programs, it's incredibly useful to be able to just open up a debugger. I would say even like on this project, most of my time I'm spending in the terminal and just in Vim, but there's certain cases where I would be kind of like insane not to just use the debugger. Like if I have some deadlock or something, or if I just want to, it's just so quick. Like with this test case finder thing here, when I'm trying to figure out why something's not working, I just reduce all these variables down to simplify, to try and get the minimal reproduction case, and then I open it up with IntelliJ, and then I just click on the breakpoint, and I can instantly look at the state and figure out why it's not working. Whereas if I just put like printf statements or something and try to do it purely on the command line, it would take forever. Yeah, it depends. I know a lot of the AI stuff is big. I have yet to actually seriously sit down and try AI programming. But I think at this point, the AI stuff is getting good enough that you probably will be considered left behind if you don't learn it a bit. And I think the integration's better for some of the, like graphical IDEs. But someone told me that I think NeoVim, which I have not tried yet, it's on my to-do list. I tried it for like 30 seconds. At one point, someone said that NeoVim has good like language server compatibility, and you can use, I think, a cloud code well with it. But I've yet to actually experiment with this. I would say it is great. It is really great to know command line programming, because if you the resource requirements are just way lower. Like, well, like for example, here's well, let me set up the connection. Just set up a connection to the repo. So I'm developing on another machine, because this physical machine in front of me is slow. So actually this is one example of why coding on a CLI is actually can be useful, because I just SSH into another machine, and I can. So I'm connecting to the setup to mount the remote file system. Okay, so here's why I code in the command line. Look how fast it takes. Look how fast, look how slow it is in Vim to open up this file. I open it up, and I can navigate quick. I can go like right to the bottom. I can like, you know, I know I have a piece of code. I could something with like num max layers. Yeah, so I can go G right to the bottom, and then I can immediately go up here at like 73% through the file. So that's how fast it is in Vim. And then, so now let's do the same thing in IntelliJ. So I clicked on IntelliJ, and it's opening. This is a really slow computer, but so it's spinning around. Let's take a sip of my tea. You can probably hear the hard drive clicking. So we're waiting for the IDE to open. There we go, it's starting to open. All right. It's finally open. So now let's click a file. I mean, this is not super representative of a development machine, because you'd have something a bit faster. File. Oh, I tried to go file open, but it's lagging so bad. File open. And I have to always click that, otherwise it doesn't find it. So we'll go down here to today's repo. Open that. Open this. Wait for it to open. Trust this thing. Close that because I don't want this. Then we'll do Control-Shift-N to, if you want the unit test file, block manager unit test. Okay, and here I could go num max layers. I think max max num layers. Yeah, there we go. So here's the equivalent operation done through an IDE. And then the other, so if I open that, so this thing is using, that's how much memory it's using. So that's 7 gigs. Is it? Oh, I'm using swap space. Interesting. Maybe that's why this is so slow. Yeah, this is a crappy old computer. Now if I do I think this will work. Actually, I can do 3056. 3056. Yeah, so here's the short answer. So this is using an IDE. Here's the resource difference. So this one's using tons of CPU. This one's Vim's using 0. And this one's using 24 megs of memory. And this one's using 7 gigs. I had no idea you could program on another machine with SSH. Also, I tried to learn Vim once. Maybe I should try again. Yeah, I think if you're going to learn any one, like command line thing, Vim is a pretty good one. I guess and NeoVim, I assume, is compatible with it. But yeah, you can absolutely. That's one of the big advantages of, like, using terminal for everything is if you know how to do it in the command line. It doesn't matter what computer you're on. You can just SSH into a remote computer, and it's like, in fact, it can even be a problem. Sometimes it's a frequent issue to, like, forget which machine you're on. And if you're, like, working at a company, like working in cloud services, you can sometimes people think they're on their own machine. They're like, that they just run like scripts and stuff to, like, if you're developing and testing stuff, you'll run a script that, like, deletes the entire database because you're building and creating and migrating and stuff, and everything on your local machine is throwaway. And it's a well, I wouldn't say it ideally should not be common, but it's like a common, like when someone totally screws up and deletes the production database by accident. That's a common way they can do it, is that they're accidentally, they run a command like delete everything, but they didn't notice that they're logged into the production server instead of the development server. But yeah, that conclusively proves it. Vim is much faster. But of course you don't have all the debugging stuff. Alright, let's see what that does. Actually, I don't even know if my test is smart enough to do this. This will probably fail validation. So this will have to be smarter. So otherwise it's going to overwrite existing characters. So I need to randomly insert characters to the region, but some of them won't fit. I don't want them to go into impossible locations. What do you think of our coding skills would have helped us with if we lived in the Stone Age? That's a good question. I guess we'd probably have a decent understanding of cause and effect and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess the coding, it's hard to disentangle the coding logic from all the other like understanding of the world. Because I'm sure, if you watch my my how to make a CPU video, if you have that knowledge, then you could just make your own computer. It would be no different than living today. You go out there, get a rock, smash it, turn it into a CPU. You could be coding again in no time. See what that does. Oh, nice. CHF 10. Oh, nice. That's quite a bit. It went from 16 to 33. Thanks for answering, but don't you need machines to build a CPU? Even if it's one of the old ones. That's true, I guess. But I mean, that would be an interesting question to know if you took a whole bunch of like computer engineers and just dropped them in the desert and said that your life depends on building a CPU. You're gonna have to build a complex microcontroller to like send a help message somewhere, and then they have to literally go out in the desert and then pick up like rocks and smelt copper and build some industrial processes. I guess if the key would be you can build like larger transistors if you're willing to tolerate. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, building transistors would be pretty complicated because like you could build like, you know, hand-sized transistors. I mean, in like industry, like transistors come in all sizes. Like if you just Google like power transistor, you can get a transistor that's literally just like a fist-sized chunk of silicon, and those exist for like switching currents in like industrial systems, like for like in the power distribution system, like for, you know, hundreds of volts and stuff. So that exists. However, it would be really difficult to control the doping concentration. But if you're willing to tolerate like inaccuracies and stuff, then, and if you're willing to run it at like really high power, then you probably could build some like large macroscopic transistors. And then if you can get them to have any kind of reliability, then you know, you could just lay them all out and build something out of it. I think one huge issue though is if you actually try to build computation with them, they're going to be so large that they'll dissipate probably so much of your electricity as heat. You'll probably need like a huge amount of power just to run like a simple adder circuit or something. And if you don't have the power, then you'll get like, so your losses will be so significant you'd lose the signal. It's just my speculation. You can make a hydraulic computer. Yeah, you can make a logic gates and stuff out of gears and stuff as well. I'm not sure if making a computer out of any kind of analog thing other than transistors is it ends up taking a lot of space and power. So I'm not sure how much. I don't know the basic logic unit for a hydraulic computer. So it'd probably be like a really huge, like if you want to run like an adder circuit or like a T flip-flop or something with hydraulics, I can't really picture that. Probably take lots of water. Lysirax 123. Thank you very much for the super chat. Let's see. I was complaining about current character width. Random character width. That might do what I want. Oh, that makes sense. I'll have to remove that check. Well, that's a little bit of progress tonight. All right, I guess we'll leave it there for tonight. I'm not sure how close I am. I'm at a point where all of the code that I think that I need to write for the implementation of the multi-column character merging is done, and also all the testing code I think is done. I just need to run the tests more and find out all the bugs and then fix them. And my intuition tells me there's going to be a bunch of them, because there's even some that I can see in the implementation. There's tons and tons there's way more corner cases with the multi-column character merging than with the single column character merging. But anyway, we'll pick up with that tomorrow for day 114. All right, talk to you later, guys.